Evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's meeting of Audit and Governance Committee. Tonight is the 11th, it's not the 11th, it's the 12th of December. Members and officers in attendance in the room, please remember to switch microphones on when speaking and speak directly into the microphone and switch off when finished. Reporting officers joining via Teams, please switch cameras and microphones on when speaking and off when finished. Use the hands up icon on Teams to indicate a question or a comment for the chair to invite you to speak. The meeting this evening will be live streamed and a recording of the meeting will be available on the council website within 24 hours of the meeting. Any exempt items private on the agenda at paragraph 14, the chair will move the Local Government Act 1972 for the meeting to go into private and the live stream will stop. There may be a short delay before taking those items. We now move to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
None, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Before us is the item 2, minutes of the meeting for the 11th of October 2023. For those in attendance, if we go to page 5, I'm going to go page by page for accuracy, yeah? So is there anything that needs changing on page 5?
No.
Page 6, page 7, and page 8. For those that were in attendance, is this a true and accurate record of the meeting?
Yeah.
Right, brilliant. There are some items outstanding for the minutes, outstanding matters. I saw today that the chief accountant had emailed response to those. Has everybody seen that email?
Yeah.
Right, okay, so those questions or actions have been done.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We will net item 3, declarations of interest. Have there been any declarations of interest in regards to section 106? Have there been any declarations? Any declarations? No?
No.
Okay. Item 4, section 106. Those items on the agendas affected by section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act will be identified at the meeting. Any members so affected is reminded that they should disclose the fact and refrain from voting on those items. Are there, item 5, are there any urgent business? Are there any urgent business for tonight's meeting? No?
No.
Okay, brilliant. Are there item 6, references from committee of other bodies? Are there any references?
None, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We now move to item 7 of the report, shared anti-fraud services report, page 9 to 22. Right, so who's going to speak on this report? Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, and good evening, members. I'm Darren Bowler, Accounting Fraud Manager at the Shared Anti-Fraud Service, and I have one report to present to you this evening, and I am assuming that you've all had an opportunity to read and review the report. The report is an update on the delivery of the plan for this year. The Shared Anti-Fraud Service provides a variety of functions for the Council, from helping to develop policies and processes to prevent fraud, including awareness training for staff and members around fraud risk, so that everyone knows what fraud looks like in their service area and, importantly, how to report it. The Council has a good position regarding fraud, both awareness and prevention, and of course, with its hosting of the Shared Anti-Fraud Service. Members' attention is drawn to the reports described at paragraph 4 of this report with a recommendation for a review. Of particular note, as the Council holds stock of social housing, is the Lost Homes, Lost Hope paper, which was published in April this year and highlights the real-term cost of tenancy fraud to the authorities. The report details the composition of the Shared Anti-Fraud Service team and the allocation of the resourcing across the Council and the service areas where we were deployed. I know that staffing levels have been of concern to this committee previously, so I'm pleased to report that we are fully staffed and have no anticipated vacancies at this time. Fraud awareness is a crucial part in the strategy to secure the council against fraud, both external and internal threats. The council, along with other members of the partnership, participated with International Fraud Awareness Week in November, and we are awaiting the results from the media teams across the partnership and our own reporting stats to see the effect that this additional publicity has had on reporting. The reporting of fraud is detailed at page 11 of your bundle, and it is also a positive indication of the council's stance of an anti-fraud culture. Reports are slightly up on the previous year, where the number of live investigation fluctuates throughout the year, with older cases carried over, being closed, and new referrals being made. The detail of that turnover can be found at pages 11 and 12. Referring you back to the Lost Homes, Lost Hope paper, there are 17 allegations of tenancy fraud currently open, and 6 properties were recovered as at the end of Q2, back into stock and issued to new families. I'm pleased to say the current figure for recovered properties as of today is 8 this year. Through the right to buy reviews, which total 63 so far this year, we continue to provide assurance of compliance to the anti-money laundering regulations and ensure that the applications to right to buy are appropriate. I'm pleased to report that a long outstanding case has been concluded at court. The case was supported by Souths and Bedfordshire Police, and the final hearing has dealt with the recovery of funds stolen from the council. Other work underway is detailed on page 13 and includes our work with the DWP, supporting teams in the council to complete the National Fraud Initiative. I'm just going to pause there to say there's been an absolute fantastic effort in the last quarter by various teams across the council, and that's credit to all of those teams involved in getting that work done and completed. Our own work within the Shared Fraud Hub, and also something that's very new for us, a pilot project on tenancy fraud, which very few authorities were invited to partake, Luton Council being one of them, and that's produced a substantial number of potential matches. More detail of this will be provided in due course, but I think it's fair to say at the moment the results that we've received are very encouraging for a number of different reasons. The report is recommended for you to note, and I am happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions? Councillor Hussain.
Can I ask you, I mean, you've given some of the figures and in terms of recovery. Can you sort of give us some idea in terms of where there is a major fraud? Is it housing, revenues, or what is council tax? Which is the largest number that we tend to get most of the time?
So by volume, it's council tax, but by value, that's not always the case, because high volume and lower values, but in tenancy fraud, we would see lower tenancy cases, but the cost to the authority could be higher, because we measure that cost on temporary accommodation, which is quite a high value. So volume is council tax, but value is tenancy fraud.
In terms of the value and the because one of the things that we generally get is where social housing is, particularly one bedroom ones, is the one from my experiences where there has been a person that owns or a tenant does not use it as somebody else's, which is normally we get a complaint about, because sometimes it's malicious. Most time it happens to be the person that's supposed to be there isn't the person that's supposed to be the tenant.
So the issue with one bedroom properties is that because you've only got one person coming in and out very often, and they might be out working all day, other people don't see them. So we get a lot of referrals. So there's a lot of work done when we receive a referral of any tenancy fraud, but obviously it's very difficult around a one-person property, because you don't have that footfall through the front door to indicate whether the property is being occupied or not. But there's lots of work that we can do in the background. So whilst it is of concern for us, my understanding is from the housing team that that is not their biggest concern. Their biggest concern is finding family properties because they're in dire need and short of those. So it's like the as I explained a moment ago, the figures could be slightly skewed depending on which viewpoint you look at them at.
Is that okay? Is there any further questions from colleagues? No? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. The National Fraud Initiative Update report is an update to this committee on the progress made by council officers to investigate the matches received as part of the 22-23 exercise. The council is required to participate in this exercise and submit key data sets. This information is cross-matched against data provided by approximately 1,200 other public and private sector organisations to prevent and detect fraud. The main data matching exercise is carried out on a 2-year cycle, but there are a few matches which we produce annually as well. In terms of this particular exercise, over 6,000 matches were received by the council, and these related to reports which were submitted in October 22, and the matches were released end of January 2023 for council officers to review. It is important to note that this exercise does result in many false positive matches, and very often it results in an administrative action rather than fraud investigation. The matches are reviewed by nominated council officers, and they're not considered fraudulent until they have been fully investigated. The report and the appendices provides details on the progress made and provides an outcome in terms of the achievements to date. Of the 6,717 matches, council officers have reviewed approximately 77% of them, and that is a good achievement, as Darren mentioned. Of the matches closed, they identified 3 cases of fraud and 927 anomalies, which identified an estimated financial outcome of approximately £806,000. The estimated financial outcome for housing waiting list, blue badges, and the concessionary travel passes is based on an estimated savings which is set by the NFI per applicant, which has been removed from the system as part of this data matching exercise. And applicants could be removed from the system for a number of reasons. There could be a change in their circumstances. They're no longer eligible for social housing. They have either moved away or not updated their requirements. In terms of preventing the potential misuse of blue badges and concessionary travel passes, these could belong to someone who is deceased now, so they no longer require this, and it's to prevent them being misused. In terms of the housing waiting list, approximately 86 applicants were removed from the waiting list, and the financial outcome of this, as mentioned, is based on NFI's annual cost of temporary accommodation and the likelihood that applicants on the waiting list would be provided a council property. So it is a figure that they've identified as a saving. It should be noted that all applications of social housing are subject to a robust verification process before an accommodation offer is made. In terms of the overpayments, there were 320 cases which totalled £310,000, and these overpayments related to council tax reduction scheme, housing benefit and creditors overpayments, and these were mainly due to in terms of information not being updated, or there was outdated information which resulted in the CTRS and the housing benefit overpayments. In addition to the 2-yearly exercise, there is an annual exercise which focuses solely on the council tax single persons discount, and the council received a report with over 3,000 matches in December 22. Of these, again, I'm pleased to say 73% of those matches were successfully investigated and closed by council officers. And these matches aim to highlight individuals who do not qualify for this discount because they are living with other accountable adults. As a result of completing this exercise, just over 340 cases were identified and a further £146,000 was identified as further council tax revenue. The council also subscribes to the Hertfordshire Fraud Hub, and as Darren mentioned, there will be some further updates in terms of how that's operating. The recommendation for the committee is to note the update and the results from the council's participation in this exercise. I'm happy to take any questions on that, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the Councillor Underwood?
Thank you, Chair. For Ken Chan, is it easy to identify the false positives?
And they have to be investigated, so each case would have to be looked into to kind of identify whether it's a false positive. And it's just an administrative exercise because somebody hasn't updated or provided the relevant information, or there's a particular reason why it doesn't result in a fraud case, really. So no, it's not very easy. I think it does require that resource to be able to kind of look at those matches and see why was it identified as a match, and based on the information we held, does it need further investigation?
Okay, and is there anything that can be done to reduce that rate of false positives?
The idea is with the fraud hub, so the idea is to kind of review that information more regularly. So as we go through that process, hopefully it wouldn't be too much of an onerous task when we kind of submit the data for the 2-yearly exercise, because we should be doing that data cleansing as we go along on a quarterly basis. So hopefully when we come to do the next exercise, you should see a drop in the number of matches that we've actually received as part of that exercise to review, and that's the aim of the fraud hub. Thank you.
More questions, members? Can I just ask, is there a case made to do what you've done with the national and the matching more frequently?
Yes, that's right. So the fraud hub will take over that task on a quarterly basis. On a quarterly basis, the fraud hub operates on the same basis as the National Fraud Initiative. So it's done by the Cabinet Office. We submit the same data sets by certain areas, but on a quarterly basis, and the same officers would review that information. And the idea with that is the data will be much more current, so we'll be able to take action much sooner to stop those overpayments occurring over a longer period of time. We wouldn't have perhaps picked it up as part of 2 years later. So that's the idea.
Thank you. So the committee has noted the update and the result of the council's participation in the National Fraud Initiative exercise. Thank you for the report. We now move on to agenda item 9, internal audit plan update.
Thank you, Chair. The internal audit plan update is to provide the committee with an update on the audit service for the last 6 months up to 30th September. As the committee is aware, the audit plan is risk-based and it focuses audit resources in those areas where the highest risks to the achievement of the plan and the strategic priorities lie. The plan is prepared in consultation with management and approved by CLMT and this committee. It is intended to be indicative of the work that will be done during the year, and the delivery of the plan is always dependent on having a full complement of staff within the audit team. As at Q2, we have completed 38% of the plan, and we are currently below target to complete at least 90% of the plan by year end. And this is mainly due to a senior auditor vacancy within the internal audit team and 2 members of the team currently on maternity leave. Whilst we had recruited to this senior auditor post earlier in the year, unfortunately, since the last update, this post has become vacant again. As reported previously, it has been a challenge to fill our senior auditor vacancies, mainly due to the shortage of skilled internal auditors and the competition for talent in local authority market. We are currently working with HR to consider alternative options, so we are looking for a secondment opportunity for the next 6 months to be able to kind of grow our own and take that approach going forward. In the interim, Mazars will be completing specific audit reviews in the second half of this year to make up some of the shortfall in completing the audit plan. And in order to provide management and the committee with an annual audit opinion on the adequacy and effectiveness of the council's control environment, this will also inform the annual governance statement. We have been targeting our existing resources to ensure all key audit areas, particularly those identified as high risk and feed into the annual audit plan, are completed. So they're our priority in terms of focus. At the time of writing this report, we did certify 5 grant claims to confirm that the conditions of the grant had been met. We issued 22 final reports, and 2 of these were issued with a limited assurance. One was in relation to the bank reconciliation, which has been reported previously to this committee. And since the last update, management have confirmed that the resolution to the system functionality issues with the new bank reconciliation module for period end reconciliations has been escalated with the IT provider, and a resolution to this matter is in the process of being agreed. The second the second limited assurance report which has been issued relates to the payment card industry data security readiness project. This is an audit review which was carried out by Mazars, and it focused on how the council is complying with the set of standards, which covers a number of areas, from policies, procedures through to various security standards and how we take payments by credit or debit card. They identified some weaknesses in the systems of controls, which resulted in a limited assurance opinion, and 6 medium priority recommendations were made and agreed to strengthen the governance, reporting and monitoring arrangements to deliver this project. Since the audit review, management have confirmed that 3 of those recommendations were implemented immediately, and progress is being made to implement the remaining 3 recommendations. Management are also working actively towards achieving compliance with these standards, and following successful system tests, they have rolled out an agreed procedure for ensuring that telephone payments are taken compliantly. So that is an action that they have taken in relation to that area. Mazars will be doing a physical follow-up on this area later in the year to provide an update to this committee. In terms of the follow-ups, we followed up on 52 recommendations during the year, and I can confirm that management have stated that 50% have been fully implemented and a further 44% are in the process of being implemented, and updates on the progress being made are detailed within the appendices within the report. The recommendation for the committee is to receive the internal audit plan update report, which covers the period 1st of April 23 to 30th September 23. Again, happy to take any questions on that, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Malik?
If you can have a look, your report is very nice, but if you can have a look on page number 23 and the paragraph 4, for participating organisation, 443 million frauds and error across the UK, which 417 million is the England, has been detected by NIF. What type of error they are, and what is the security measure to control this error have you taken? Can you please guide us?
So this particular question is in relation to the NFI exercise, which was undertaken. So in terms of the participating organisations, since the NFI was created in 1996, this is the amount of fraud and error values as a cumulative total, which has been identified by the various organisations which have participated. For Luton in particular, most of these are in relation to the areas which were covered in the report. So they were like the housing waiting list to remove the applicants because data was not up to date. In terms of the other areas, there was the council tax reduction scheme where it was identified, well, actually, these people weren't eligible for single person's discount. So again, that was actioned. So there are various controls within the services which they adhere to as part of the day-to-day processes. But the idea with this data matches, it provides that further information across various sectors, and it provides us with other information which we do not hold as an organisation to be able to kind of do those data matches and to identify, well, actually, is there anything in this which could kind of help for us to kind of remove those applicants off the system because they're actually no longer eligible, so it kind of cleanses our data, or is there an actual fraud involved in this, which does require further action? And if there is a fraud, we would refer those over to SAFS for further investigation. So in terms of our participation, so far we've only identified 3 cases of fraud, over the 6,000 matches which were provided for us to have a look at. Thank you.
Is that satisfactory, Councillor Malik? You okay? Okay, thank you. Is it Councillor Underwood?
Thank you. You're saying that because of resourcing, you're prioritising the high-risk audits first. There are some of those high-risk audits on here where the status is blank, is not work in progress. Is, for example, payroll, HR, or another one, whistleblowing. So, is there a plan to, or is there a schedule to get these high-risk audits done?
That's right. So with those high risk audits, the whistleblowing, we would only look at those areas if we received an allegation of a whistleblowing. So we haven't received any for this year to investigate or refer over to SAFS to have a look at. So that's why there's no work in progress on that one. With the HR payroll, we recently, I think, issued a report on that as part of the old audit plan, last year's audit plan. So that piece of work isn't scheduled till Q4. So we do have a schedule in place to do these. And because that update is only up until September 2023, there is a plan in place to target the remaining high priority risks to ensure that we complete them as at the end of the year. And Mazars will be focusing on some of those areas as part of the second half of this year as well. So by the time we do the next report, there should be much more activity on those high risk areas.
Okay, so there is a logic behind scheduling of the work. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any more questions from members of this paper? Yeah. Thank you. So the committee is recommended to review the internal audit plan update, which covers the period the 1st of April 2023 to September 2023. That's been done. Thank you. Colleagues, we now move to agenda item 10, corporate risk register update.
Thank you, Chair. This particular report provides an update on the authority's corporate risks and the risk management work being undertaken. The Council's risk management strategy provides a framework to ensure that risks and opportunities are managed effectively, and this is also an essential part of good corporate governance. All risks are recorded on the Council's risk management system and are assigned to risk owners for review and monitoring. The system issues automatic reminders for risk owners to update their risk assessments and control measures when they become due for review. All staff have access to the e-learning training on risks, and risk management is also delivered corporately to officers and members. The corporate risks are reported to the Internal Governance Group, CLMT and Audit and Governance Committee on a quarterly basis for review. As the committee is aware, that we use a 4x4 risk assessment matrix to assess the likelihood of the risk occurring and the impact on the council in the event that it did occur. The criteria used for this assessment is detailed in section 8 of the report. The different strategies which can be used to manage these risks is detailed in section 9 of this report, and there are currently 38 risks on the corporate risk register. Since the last update, one risk has been withdrawn in relation to the impact of COVID-19 and the ability of staff to deliver services, as this situation is now being monitored as part of business as usual. Risk scores have also reduced for 4 risks, and the details for these are provided in section 11 of this report. Section 12 of the report contains a heat map and identifies that the majority of the corporate risks have been identified by risk owners as medium high priority, and there are currently 4 high priority risks, and control measures in terms of an update on the control measures are detailed in section 13 of the report. These 4 high priority risks relate to failure to keep to the approved budget, failure to recruit and retain staff, the current demand profile, poverty and looting continues to result in an overspend on budget, and this is for temporary accommodation, and the failure to improve the decline and look of the town centre. The recommendation is for the committee to review the updated corporate risk register. Again, happy to take any questions on this report, Chair.
Thank you, Audit. Are there any questions from colleagues? Councillor Farouk.
But I've seen, read it all of it, and what I'm trying to understand is there anything else that we are not sure is high risk that we want to target or take it on?
The risks are reviewed on a quarterly basis by the internal governance group, and as part of that we do have the senior risk officer who highlights any key emerging risks which may be applicable to the authority, and these are discussed in that forum. So that there is a process in place to kind of highlight, even within the departments, they should be kind of horizon scanning, if you like, around the key risks, and these should hopefully either filter into the individual departmental risk as a key risk that we need to address, or they should be identified as a new risk to the corporate risk register. I suppose as an example of recent ones that we included the COVID one when that was identified, a couple of years ago as a key risk. We've also added the climate change risk, again that was a couple of years ago. So I think we do have risks associated with cyber already on the plan, and there are various control measures being undertaken to kind of control those measures. But yes, as and when there are emerging risks, they are considered, and then they would escalate in terms of being added to the corporate risk register where they've been identified as a key risk. Thank you.
Are there any further questions from members?
No.
Right. The committee's recommended to review the updated corporate risk register. I take it that now has been done.
Yeah.
Thank you. We now move to agenda item 11, Treasury Management half-year report, half-year ended the 30th of September 2023. Over to the director. It's on screen. John, are you there?
I am here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to talk through the report for the committee. Okay, this is the 6 monthly report for the Treasury Management strategy, and gives us a position at that stage. The report reviews the Treasury Management strategy and annual investment strategy, plus the various prudential borrowing and Treasury indicators for the first 6 months of the financial year 23-24. The committees are requested to approve for submission to full council and executive, and we'll be looking at the longer term borrowing arrangements that there aren't any to date for up to the end of September 23, and note that the council did not breach any of its prudential limits during that period. So a little bit of background, we explain what the Treasury Management is in terms of the capital strategy and provision of borrowing to underpin the strategy where necessary, and its management of cash balances. We adhere to the SIPFA Code of Practice for Treasury Management, which advises that members are kept up to speed with Treasury Management matters on a regular basis, and we tend to do it at 6 monthly periods. And for the outturn, which I think is coming up later, and of course we set the strategy with full council along with the budget every February. So there's a kind of framework around it recommended by SIPFA, and we are adhering to that. The mid-year report covers a number of things that I've already alluded to, which I'll cover in brief. We'll start with an economic outlook. So we get advice from our Treasury consultants, Arlene Close, on various things, and they're saying things around consumer price index changes and inflationary changes and their outlook across the next couple of years, which are covered within the report. And I can talk a little bit more about what that means. Interest rate forecast, the Monetary Policy Committee linked to the Bank of England have maintained the base rate at 5.25% for November, and the outlook is that will probably remain until the latter part of next year, when the rate may eventually change, with potentially the monetary strategy kicking in and inflation decreasing. So what we do is we kind of take advice on that and reflect in our forecast borrowing estimates into the future, so that we are in step with what's really happening out there in the economy and what's advised to us by our advisors. So the report covers those aspects to it. The overall capital position is then covered. within the report. That's pages or paragraphs 29 to 30. And the position in 29 is that we had a particular position agreed by full council in February, and we are now spending a little bit less, quite a lot less. We originally had 238 million, and we're now estimating to only spend 87. So there's a number of reasons for what we call slippage around the capital programme. We don't lose the money as such because we've financed it, and it's financed from several financing sources, some of which is borrowing, capital receipts, revenue contributions, and capital grants. So it's not always great news that there's slippage, but there's a number of reasons, and the executive committee saw a report last week, the 4th of December, which identified some of the chief reasons for the slippage and talks a bit more about the overall position. So we originally were going to spend 238 million. We're only forecasting to spend 87, and some of the big ticket items in there around the Levelling Up Fund, the stage project, and TAPS, temporary accommodation, where it's difficult to identify the actual homes to secure. There's other reasons around supply chain issues and capacity to deliver projects in time, and those sorts of things that are covered more in the report. But I think that's the main thrust of this, is that we've got this degree of slippage to manage, which does affect our borrowing. So where we don't need to borrow, we won't, and therefore we do release some good news, some surplus within the Treasury management strategy, which we've reported at Q2 as well for the financial year. So the report then goes on to talk about the capital financing requirement, which is essentially linked to the amount of borrowing we're going to need, and talks about the boundaries within that, and the lower degree that we will be borrowing for the financial year. So paragraph 31 talks about a net financing need for the year reduced to only 37.961 million for the reasons around the slippage, essentially. So there's then some information about our borrowing limits, which are set by the full Treasury management strategy each February. So there's some information about that, some information about our investments and the returns that we get, which are covered in appendices A. And there's also a full list of investments held to the 30th September 2023 shown in Appendix B. And finally, some elements of non-Treasury investment, which may be of interest to members, given that it's some good news around how we manage the loans to the arm's length companies, and how we manage commercial properties and the gains that we can expect, the yields that we can expect from those investments, which is covered in paragraph 41. So there's quite a lot in it. Talks about the borrowing arrangements, debt rescheduling, and so forth. And that's about it, actually. Those are the main highlights. So I'm happy to take any questions on any elements of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Colleagues, members, are there any questions? Councillor Farouk?
Oh, thank you for your report. You still complete saying that we're going to borrow next year, is that right?
I'm sorry, Councillor, I didn't catch.
Are we still going to borrow some money next year too?
Oh yes, there's a whole plan, strategy across the medium term, and we're in the process of reviewing that now. So the slippage means that the monetary values of those projects that are essentially underspent in this current financial year will move forward into next financial year, 2024-25, and the borrowing can ensue at that point, along with anything new for that financial year. So short answer, absolutely yes.
Hussain, you had your hand up?
It's the only one that really was a concern some time ago, and with the COVID, was the investment in the offices and that, or the shopping centres. Are we still think that that risk exists, or are we saying now we're satisfactory that the investment we've done, even though it's decreased slightly, the returns are still likely to stay where they are?
That may be one better for Dev, Councillor.
Yes, so very good point. Changes in post-COVID shopping, online shopping, office is a challenge. So we all will have to adjust. You will see in the Q2 report, we've mentioned about the commercial income. So there has been a reduction in commercial income, especially for office space. We've got a portfolio of commercial properties. So we've commissioned an external advisor to look at all our commercial properties and to look at the next 5-10 years, how the economy is going to change, what are the areas where we've got to invest or disinvest. And that report will be coming shortly, and it will be part of the budget report. And then we'll take a view on where are the risks, where are the areas where we have to invest, where the areas we may have to disinvest. So absolutely is a risk which we have to look at and will be guided by those external advisors. So members will be bringing a report to say what are the risks, but it's the risk which we are aware of. Yeah.
In terms of our investment in, where there was a concern at an earlier stage because of the COVID in terms of investment in the airport and other investments. We are not at any risk at all, servicing the debt as well as trying to get the income to the council.
I think in terms of investment in the airport, absolutely right. So the planning strategy for the expansion of the airport and the regeneration of the economic creation of jobs that we embarked on that maybe 7-8 years ago, even before I joined the council. So there was a plan in terms of investment in DOT, investment in the airport expansion, DCO. Yes, COVID was a big challenge. It was a challenge for every part of the economy, but hopefully the passenger numbers has recovered and it's recovered, but hopefully soon we'll be reaching the pre-pandemic level. So that is something which, yeah, it's recovered better than we expected, and all airports are saying we are coming out of COVID, but still we have not reached the pre-pandemic level. So hopefully we'll reach that level. But yes, is a risk with any commercial activity. There's always a risk with the economy going up or down, or you've got but hopefully we won't have another pandemic for the next 100 years, but who knows? That was a black swan event, but the risk is still there, councillor. Yeah.
Of course, the income from the DART is increasing very rapidly than what was first estimated to be. Is that correct?
You mean the income from the airport, councillor?
Yeah, no, the DART as well.
Yeah, so the two elements, when we after the pandemic, we brought an stabilization plan for the airport, and we had an emergency budget for the council to have a sort of more affordable and sustainable budget. So the airport has been performing better, and that will be reflected in the accounts. And in terms of the DOT, yeah, I think the passenger numbers as well, the number of people using DOT is better than expected. So that will be reflected in the airport the financial position. So the main purpose of DOT is to, at the same time, to hit the net zero target. So expansion at the airport and more people shifting from road to rail, which is better for the economy, better. But yeah, the income as expected, the income we are getting from DOT is slightly better than what we expected. So hope that trend continues. Thank you.
So Jay Hussain.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you to the Chief Accountant for your report. In Appendix B, under other organisations, what exactly is the Goldman Sachs Money Market Fund? So that's in terms of what Appendix B relates to investment balances by counterparty.
Thank you,
And it's
Councillor.
under-
That's a
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, Goldman Sachs Money Market Funds. So that's actually an investment account that we have that gives us a particular yield. So it's an offer that we've taken up, and we are investing money in that area to gain an income, essentially. So there are a number of offers out there, and schools have invested there, and with other organisations as well. Goldman Sachs, yes, it's an option that we have to use to gain a particular return on our investments.
Councillor Underwood.
Yeah, just to follow up on that. So I noticed that the amount of cash that have invested in these funds has gone down quite significantly. Is there a reason for that? Because it does seem a shame that if you're earning 5% on that cash, that almost seems to be offsetting any rises, any extra expenditure that we're incurring because of inflation.
Okay, well, good question, Councillor. Well, we would always invest what we can, and we make decisions on a daily basis about investments and disinvestments on money market funds. So it's actually at a point in time where we've decided that that's the level of investment that we will have, and we are looking at the wider picture of internal borrowing, where we use balances to avoid having to go back to the Public Works Loans Board and take out new loans. So that does come into it, and we are trying to manage the cash along the day-by-day financial year to actually get the best gains that we can. So it's probably indicative of where we are at a point in time in terms of cash management. I mean, that's the short answer, and it can change in accordance with how the capital programme unfolds and how other aspects of council activities that have got a fiscal implication unfold across a financial year.
Section 151 officer wants to come in on that.
Just to add on what John has said, and you will see the basic principle of the treasury management is what you call SLI. So security, liquidity, and yield. So first we look at security. So Goldman Sachs and the money market fund are highly liquid funds, and they're considered as AAA. So when you invest in money market funds, they're very short term, and then you get a low return. But when we invest, we look at security, so we can call these very quickly, and the liquidity is important. But the last thing is a bit out of the yield. But the point you're making here is absolute, is the rate of return, which by and large everybody's getting on deposit, is lower than the inflation. So in real terms, right. But these are extra cash. Is not, we don't have long-term investment. If we had long-term investment, we're investing in other products, but this is extra cash we generate. So sometimes at the beginning of the month, we get council tax money, we invest them and at the end of the month, we pay the salary. But there are some areas like schools and everything we do invest, and those investment, when we generate the interest, will give school back as well. So money market fund are highly liquid, AAA rated. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Underwood. Councillor J. Hussein's got a question.
Thank you, Chair. Just a follow-up question to my original one to the Chief Accountant. What exactly is the forecast for the yield market? Given that, I mean, I'm just noting, obviously, there's also school investments within that particular fund that I referred to earlier as well. I mean, is there any forecast? Is the market volatile for yields, or is it a good market?
I think we've had some information back from our treasury management consultants. There is a recession looming, so we're not necessarily expecting yields to increase. Inflation is becoming under control, and interest rates are likely to drop, but not for another year. So we would probably expect the yields market to do something similar. So it's a little vague, but I think we're probably looking at a little bit of a downturn as we manage the almost hyperinflation that we've had to manage in the last year or so. So we can expect perhaps a little bit of a downward trend, and there's talk of a recession as well, and we'll have to see how that bites in as inflation gets under control and interest rates eventually come down. We may ward off that recession as a UK economy, but that does remain to be seen.
Are there any more questions on that? Right, agenda item 11, the committee is recommended to approve for submission to full council and executive the mid-year report on treasury management for the half year ended the 30th of September, which summarises and reviews the council's treasury management activities along with changes required to prudential indicators for capital expenditure, capital finance requirement and gross borrowing. Do we approve this to go forward? Thank you. We are also required to note that there has been no new long-term borrowing between April and September 2023, as shown in Appendix A. That is so noted. And last, note that the council did not breach any of its prudential limits. So noted. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 12, which is it John? John, is it that you?
Yes, it is
Or
indeed.
Deb?
Yes, I'll
Okay,
cover this
over to
one
you,
as
John.
well. Okay, so this is the Treasury Management Outturn report that has actually been to Executive on the 6th of November and to full council on the 14th of November. So I believe the committee is asked to note this report as it's a few months old now, but I can talk through what it actually is, and much the same as the 6-monthly version. This is for the outturn of last financial year, so that's 2022-23, and it does the same thing really as the 6 month. It gives us a stock take at a point in time, happens to be at the end of a financial year, and it gives us the prudential indicators. And it's good also to note that the council did not breach any of its prudential limits for the year. There was some external borrowing, £80 million during that financial year, and there was indeed also slippage against the capital programme, which was reported within the report against the original limits that were set. And all the financing streams are noted for both the general fund and the housing revenue account in terms of the overall position. So given that this is not a new report, I wasn't going to speak too much on it. It's been seen already, but it does the same things. That we've got Treasury management advice around the outlook on interest rates, which of course has now been superseded by what we've just had at the 6-monthly version. So I think I'm happy to take any questions on this report, given the context. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions on the report by members? Okay, the committee is recommended to note the Treasury Management Annual Report, year ended the 31st of March 2023, which has been to the Executive on the 6th of November and to full council on the 14th of November. So noted.
Yep.
Brilliant. Thank you, colleagues. We now move to agenda item 13. Verbal report by section 151, progress in achieving the auditor's sign-off of accounts. Over to you, Dev.
So thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. So I will give you an update on 1819, and at the same time, I will give you an update on our 22-23 because you've got new auditors. I will give you an update on that as well. On 1819, we have been discussing quite a lot, and last time I did brief the audit committee, so they had a couple of more meetings, myself and Robin, very lengthy meeting, full-up phone conversation. So at this stage, we're still working towards an agreed way forward with EY and the partners. So we're still in conversation, and I'm sure Robin is off now. So another meeting has been arranged for early part of January when Robin is back, and then to make that progress. At this stage, that's all I can say, that we are working towards an agreed way forward with our auditors, EY. So if any questions, then I can move on the 23-24, what is happening for 23-24, which is much more relevant.
Any questions at this point to section 151 officer? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So auditors get appointed by PSAA, which is Public Sector Audit Appointment. So they go through a procurement process for practically most of the council in UK, and they appoint. So they've got lots. Some get London, some get Midlands, some got So our auditors for 23-24. So we've got EY, our auditors until 22-23, which is a year which has finished, but 23-24, the year which we are in. Our new auditors are Grant Thornton. So we work with Grant Thornton before we had EY. So they have been appointed as our auditors, including a lot of council within the neighbouring speaker. They go with block of audit. So that's for 23-24, which is the current year, and 4 years until 2027-2028. So we had a meeting. We had a few meetings already. So the last meeting we had was on the 4th of December. And then to discuss about the plan from GT for our audit for 2024. So it's very positive, and we've got a high-level time frame for GT to work on the 2024 audit. They will start the initial planning for the VFM, so that the value for money audit, between January and April 2024. The detailed VFM audit potentially will start from May 2024, and hopefully the annual audit results report for the VFM should be out by October 2024, but also it depends on the timings, but not later than December 24. So that's the plan from GT to talk about 2024, because I'm sure members will appreciate the latest information, which the current 2024 is much more relevant, because that's what is the latest information. And they will have planned to start to work on the statement of accounts as well. So as I said, we are having detailed discussion, and we will have further discussion with GT, but at the same time we're having discussion with EY. So we've got 2 auditors right now, so we're managing both. But that's very promising, is GT will start our audit for 2024, will start the value for money 2024, and will put all the resources required in order to support GT in that will work closely with them. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Question, Councillor Joe Hussain.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question, if I may, just to perhaps out of curiosity, any particular reason for changing auditors to GT?
So
Out of interest.
Yeah. We don't appoint. So the reason why we joined PSAA, this is a body which has been set up. They are not private sector. Their body has been set up by all councils in order to have more buying powers. So if we go individually to appoint auditors, you won't have the same buying powers like PSSA. So they've got the contract on our behalf. They negotiate on our behalf. So I think, don't quote me on that, maybe 95, 98% of all council goes through that. So then we go through that process. They will advertise, these are the lots. So let's say London Borough or South East or whatever. So then firms are invited, like Ernst & Young, Grant Thornton, there's Mazars as well, part of that. There's few big firms who bid for that work. Now, I don't know the detail who bid for what, and then they all get allocated in blocks. So they might say, here's the block, and that's rather than one audit in the north, one in the south. So those are interested in the north and the south, southeast London. So they get allocated, and then they will announce to all council, hey, they are the auditors. So the consultation process, there's consultation, we give feedback on the audit fees and everything. So it's done very open and transparent. So then for this group, which we are, GT is our new auditors.
Did you say we had GT before?
We worked with GT before Ernst & Young were appointed. So, and GT is quite a big firm in terms of local government audit. Yeah.
Familiar with our setup, and they're familiar with the council and its various investments and X, Y, and Z. That's
yes, they're very much. And we met with Matt Dean, who is going to be the partner for the audit, and then we met with Paul Dossett, and Paul Dossett is the head of local government committee, and Paul Dossett was the partner when before EY started, and myself and Trevor Holden at that time we were working with Paul Dossett, but now he's so he's got allocated Matt Dean, who will be But Paul Dossett, we met with Paul Dossett, and he will take a keen interest, because he's always had a keen interest on Luton, because
Councillor Underwood.
Thank you, Chair. We still have the same resource issues that you've had before. Is that going to be a threat to the audit plan?
I think the challenge of resources is still a challenge. So it's a challenge for, as government has acknowledged, is channel for auditors and everything. But in terms of Grant Thornton, we have been provided the assurance that they are properly resourced, but still you never know with the way the market is in terms of getting sort of staff with capacity and capability. But they've got a VFM department, and they've got an audit department. So it's not the same team who will do the VFM and the audit. So it starts from auditors we have been given the assurance that they're reasonably resourced. So that's why they're planning, and they're saying, here are some dates we're working towards. December 24 is done, audit is done. The VFM audit and the other audit as well. So we, from the council point of view, the finance, John has left now, so no, John is still here probably, yeah. So we have been going through several campaign to recruit a closure accountant. So now we offer the post, and that person will be starting in January. So we've got that. We've got a full-time capital accountant. So the challenge is when we've got 2 or 3 years audit going at the same time, it will stretch any department. So like in the last few years, we had 18-19 audit going, we had 19-20 audit going parallel, and then we've got to prepare the accounts. And then we went out of COVID, stabilization, a special force measure. It will stretch any team. We do get resources when we require. So we had additional resources as and when required, but hopefully we get that closure accountant, and that's a very technical job. So fingers crossed, and that is important to have that continuity, because the last 3-4 years we had a lot of agency staff, but still we managed to deliver, but still a challenge to get. Yeah, especially areas like you will see capital accountant, closure accountant, collection fund accountant. There's a very dedicated, specific role, and there is a shortage of those staff with key knowledge. But hopefully we've got that knowledge, but we need that more continuity in terms of, yeah. So fingers crossed that stuff is starting in January. So hopefully we'll have. But one of the things I say, when I go to Robin and I will ask for areas where we need more resources, even for 18-19, I've got Deloitte, the technical team of Deloitte, one of the big 4 accounting firm, to help us with, yeah. So the council has already been good to provide the resources, but it's always when you've got so many parties, it can be challenged when you've got 3 or 4 things going on at the same time. But hopefully, fingers crossed and touch wood, we get the closure, and then we can work on those. Yeah.
And is there a lot of work still to do on the intervening audits from 19, 20, 2021, 22, 21, 22?
Yeah, so we had a meeting with EY, because EY 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, 21, 22, that's our auditors. So we had a discussion with them, and as requested by the committee, we're still waiting from central government to come with the final legislation. So once central government will, and I promise I will bring a detailed report here, but hopefully in the next couple of months, they will bring exactly what that looks like, what the backstop, when we'll have to complete all the audit, clear the backlog. So once you've got that piece of final clarification, we know high level, as I've mentioned, there's a cutoff date 31st of March 2024 to get all 18, 19, but we don't know. There's still discussion what wording will be used when they showed the report, when there was some area. So those are the things which is being discussed, which will be more relevant to the 19, 20, 20, 21, 21, 22, and 22, 23 as well. Hopefully, when government clarified that, then we'll hear from EY. So they will have firm guidance from central government. Then we'll bring a detailed report. EY will bring a report to say, okay, here's how we're going to deal with those. But until we get those clarification from central government, it's yeah. But what I would say is we're starting the work on 23-24. So that's one of the things which I'm really excited about. We start to look at 23-24. Yeah.
More questions? I'd just like to add, from what I've picked up, there's not many councils that are up to date on their audit. So the pressures under here is systematic. I actually read there's only 1% that are up to date. It was quite an interesting read. And we had hoped, I think EY had hoped that by December, or today's the 12th of December, we would have heard from the government as to what the backstop is. So it's a week, 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks to Christmas. So we'll have to wait and see. So, but I just thought I'd just reassure we're not the only ones in the same situation. And I did hear there was a local authority that had accounts outstanding relevant for the year 14-15 not done. So
We're lucky.
go on, Dev.
Just update something. I think that there has been an acknowledgement from central government. There has been acknowledgement from the industry is recruiting good staff for the audit firm has been a challenge. So the audit fees, you will see when I'll bring a paper for 24-25 has a significant increase. So when PSSA went for the procurement this time, there has been acknowledgement from central government, everybody, that there needs to be more resources going there. So you will see our audit fees, I think, is in the region of, I don't have, but we're talking about 400. And that's not us, is across. We are considered as a big London borough. With our complexity, with accounts and everything, we are considered as like a big London borough. So our fees is the same. Like, so there's group, so there's like the group one, the audit fees in the region of XY, but that's audit fees which PSSA has agreed, and it be similar fees for those authorities. We've got that complex. Then we are unitary, so those are the fees which will be, yeah. So, but that has been provided for in the budget. So we were anticipating this coming when the procurement was being done for audit. Thank you.
Okay, on that note, as there's no more questions, the meeting is now come to an end, and I wish all, if I don't see you again, season's greetings, and enjoy the holidays when they come, and stay safe.